You ever accidentally stub your toe on the corner of a table and suddenly feel like you've been hit by a freight train? Now imagine doing that on purpose, but with your shins, elbows, and knees against another person trying to do the same to you. That's Muay Thai. But trust me, its history is even wilder than the fights. Let's dive in. So before Muay Thai became the art of making someone rethink all of their life choices with a single knee to the ribs, Thailand, or rather Siam as it was known back then, was all about Krabi Krabong. Sounds fancy, right? Well, it was basically sword swinging, spear thrusting, and shield smashing warfare. Imagine Game of Thrones, but with more elephants and less winter. But here is the kicker. What happened when a warrior lost their weapon mid-battle? Cry? Call for backup? No, they had to keep fighting. And that's where things got interesting. Siamese warriors started blending their armed combat with unarmed techniques, grappling, wrestling, and using every limb like a living weapon. This was not just street fighting, it was battlefield survival. If you got disarmed, your fists became daggers, your shins turned into battering rams, and your elbows? Yeah, they were steel hammers waiting to cave in someone's skull. This was the missing link, the moment Muay Thai's DNA started forming. And just like every great fighting style, it didn't evolve in a vacuum. The Siamese absorbed influences from neighboring martial arts. Ever heard of Kalari Priyaro from India? Think of it as the yoga version of stabbing people. It had crazy flexibility and movement techniques. Then there was Shaolin Kung Fu with all its fluid strikes and acrobatics. Mix all of that up with Thailand's brutal, no-nonsense approach to combat, and boom, you've got the early bones of Muay Thai. Now let's talk about how insane these early warriors were. You ever kicked a chair leg by accident and needed a full minute to recover? Yeah, these guys were out here kicking banana trees until their shins could split wood. Their fists strengthened by punching metal shavings. And when they weren't busy preparing for war, some fighters trained in temples where monks taught them not just combat but the mental discipline behind it. Imagine learning how to elbow someone's jaw into another dimension while also meditating on the meaning of life. Balance. So by this point, Muay Thai was no longer just a backup plan for when warriors lost their swords. It had evolved. It had rules. Well, kind of. And it had a name, Muay Boran, which basically translates to ancient boxing. But don't let the name fool you. This wasn't some old school gentlemanly sparring match. This was war disguised as a sport. No gloves, no rounds, no referees telling you to keep it clean. If you got knocked down, guess what? You got back up. Or you didn't. Now, Muay Boran was not some one-size-fits-all fighting style. It had flavors depending on where you learned it. You had some major styles, each tailored to different regions and, let's be honest, different levels of badassery. First up, Muay Chaya. This one came from the south and it was all about defense. Fighters stood low, hands up, and they specialized in counterattacks. Think of it like playing chess, but instead of taking a pawn, you're snapping someone's elbow in half. Then there was Muay Korat from the northeast. This was the powerhouse style. The goal? Hit like a truck. Fighters from this school were known for their ridiculous strength, throwing kicks and punches that could, no joke, break ribs like they were breadsticks. In the central regions, we had Muay Lup Bori, the trickster style. Fighters were unorthodox, constantly faking moves, dodging, and pulling off unexpected strikes. Think of them like the guy in a bar fight who suddenly throws a spinning back fist out of nowhere. And finally, Muay Tasau from the north. This was for the speed demons. Fighters were fast, light on their feet, and had an obsession with flying attacks. If you wanted to see someone literally launch themselves at an opponent, this was the style to watch. But Muay Boran was not just for sport, it was for survival. And some of the wildest stories of this era came straight from the Thai kings themselves. Enter King Nariswan the Great. And no, we're not just calling him the Great for fun. This dude earned it. He didn't just sit on a throne and order his men into battle. He fought alongside them. And you best believe he knew Muay Boran. His soldiers were trained like absolute maniacs, kicking tree trunks, kneeing stacks of buffalo ribs until they broke. Imagine the leg day that required. And the best part, this was not just for training. These were actual fighting techniques used in battle. You lost your weapon? Boom, your knee just became a battering ram. Fast forward 100 years or so and we meet King Frachao Sua, aka the Tiger King. No, not the Netflix kind. This guy was obsessed with Muay Thai, to the point where he would sneak into underground fight tournaments disguised as a commoner. He would literally enter fights against some of the best warriors in the land, and spoiler alert, he wrecked them. Nobody knew they were getting their skulls rearranged by royalty. And these fights? Brutal. This was the Muay Couture era, where fighters wrapped their hands in hemp rope instead of gloves. If you wanted to get extra nasty, you could dip those wraps in resin and roll them in crushed glass. Basically, every punch was a blender to the face. There was no tapping out, no judges scoring points. If you lost, you left with broken bones. Or worse. So there we were in 1767 and things were not looking great for Thailand. Ayutthaya, the capital, imagine the Thai version of Rome, full of temples, warriors and absolute power, was burning to the ground. And who was responsible? The Burmese army, rolling in like an ancient wrecking crew, leaving nothing but ash and destruction in their wake. Now this wasn't some random act of aggression. Thailand, or the Siam at the time, and Burma had been at each other's throats for centuries, fighting over land, trade routes, and well, just good old-fashioned empire building. But this time, Burma was not playing. They wanted total domination. And they got it. Ayutthaya was wiped off the map, along with nearly every written record of Muay Thai. And here is where things got dicey for our beloved art of 8 limbs. With their homeland in ruins, Thai warriors, monks, and fighters scattered across the country like an underground resistance. They hid their Muay Thai knowledge, training in secret, passing techniques down through whispers and bruises. If you wanted to learn Muay Thai during this time, it wasn't as simple as signing up at your local gym. You had to find someone who knew it, convince them you were worthy, and then survive whatever brutal training they threw at you. Now, out of this chaos came one of Muay Thai's most legendary figures, Nai Khanom Tom. And if you don't know this name, buckle up, because this guy was basically the John Wick of ancient Thailand. Nai Khanom Tom was one of the many warriors captured by the Burmese after Ayutthaya fell. Instead of executing him outright, the Burmese king Shin had a fun idea. He wanted to see how good this so-called Muay Thai actually was. So he threw Nai Khanom Tom into a death match against 10 Burmese warriors. Now most people, they would be praying for a quick exit at this point, but Nai Khanom Tom, he danced. Literally, he performed the Wai Kru Ram Wai, the ritual Thai fighters used to honor their teachers and gods before a fight. The Burmese were confused. The king thought it was some black magic nonsense. And then, boom. Nai Khanom Tom unleashed absolute destruction, one by one knocking out all 10 of his opponents with vicious strikes, knees and elbows. The Burmese king's reaction? The Thai body is full of venom. No joke, that's what he said. He was so impressed that he granted Nai Khanom Tom his freedom, and today, March 17th, is National Muay Thai Day in his honor. But Muay Thai was not just about beating people into submission. It had soul, it had spirituality. This wasn't just a fight, it was a sacred art. Before every fight, warriors performed the Wai Kru and Ram Wai dance, not to stretch or psych themselves up, but to honor their teachers, their ancestors, and even their gods. Fighters wore sacred armbands or prajiod, often blessed by monks, and a monk-on headband, believed to bring protection and luck. Some even went full badass mode and got Sakyan tattoos. These were not your average Instagram tattoos. These were etched by monks using bamboo needles with prayers said over them, believed to give fighters protection, strength, and endurance. So while the world saw Muay Thai as a brutal blood sport, the fighters themselves saw it as something deeper. A connection to their ancestors, their culture, and even the divine. And just like that, Muay Thai survived its darkest hour. From the ashes of Ayutthaya through secret underground fight clubs, and thanks to warriors like Nai Khanom Tom, it refused to die. But trust me, this story is far from over. So there we were stepping onto the 1900s, and Muay Thai was still that same bare-knuckle, limb-shattering medieval street fight that it had always been. Except now it had a bit of a problem. People were dying. A lot. Turns out, when your idea of protective gear is wrapping your fists in hemp rope, soaked in resin and ground glass, fights don't exactly end with a friendly handshake. So in the 1920s, Thailand decided, hey, maybe we should make this a little less murdery. And just like that, the sport got an upgrade. Ropes? Gone. Boxing gloves? In. Fights now happened in actual rings, not just some dusty patch of ground outside the village temple. Oh, and they introduced weight classes, because before that, fights were basically you, me, let's see who survives. Not exactly fair when you've got a 120-pound dude trying to dodge the knees of a 200-pound warhorse. And so Muay Thai entered its organized era. But let's be real, it was still Muay Thai. Fighters did not just train, they punished their bodies into weapons. Picture this, kicking banana trees until their shins were basically steel pipes. Sparring daily and living in camp-style gyms where the only thing colder than the morning air was the realization that you would be getting roundhouse kicked in the ribs before breakfast. By the 1940s, Muay Thai had stadiums, referees, and a whole new level of seriousness. L'Entrée Stadium, built in 1945, and Lumpini Stadium, built in 1956, became the places to prove yourself. If you were not fighting there, were you even fighting? Winning a Lumpini belt was not just an achievement, it was a one-way ticket to legendary status. But here is the thing about high-stakes fighting. Money follows. And when money follows, so does gambling. Betting became a massive part of Muay Thai culture. You had fight fixing, sketchy decisions, and moments where a fighter definitely should have won, but oh wow, look at that, the guy all the big gamblers bet on just happened to get the victory. Despite all of this, fighters were leveling up. Training was more scientific, strategies got smarter, and fighters were not just brawlers anymore, they were technicians. Enter the golden generation of the 1980s, the fighters who took Muay Thai from the raw brutality to straight up poetry in motion. First up, Samat Pyakarun, aka the Sugar Ray Leonard of Muay Thai. This dude made fighting look effortless. If Muay Thai were a video game, he was that guy who plays on the hardest difficulty and still dodges every punch like it's slow motion. Then there was Disolnoy Kor Tanasukarn, a walking nightmare for anyone under 6 feet tall. This guy had knees so deadly that the sport literally ran out of people willing to fight him. Imagine being so dominant that the entire division just quits. That's Disolnoy. And finally, Senchai, the absolute master of making opponents look like fools. This man invented half the tricks that you see in highlight reels today. Spinning back fists, cartwheel kicks, sweeps that made full-grown men look like toddlers learning to walk. Senchai was not just fighting, he was putting on a show. Muay Thai had evolved. It was no longer just a fight to the death in a temple courtyard. It was now a global combat sport. And the best was still yet to come. So there we were, the 1960s. When Muay Thai decided it was done minding its own business and was ready to pick a fight with the world. And when I say pick a fight, I mean absolutely dismantle every other striking style in existence. It all started when Japanese karate masters thought, hey, we've got insane discipline, powerful punches, and lightning fast kicks. Surely we can take on these Thai fighters. Enter Rawi Dechachai, a Muay Thai technician built like he was forged in a volcano. His opponent, Kenji Kurosaki, a decorated Japanese karateka who was about to find out why elbows are not just for leaning on tables. The result? Bang! One well-placed elbow strike to the face and Kurosaki was done. The Japanese were so impressed that they basically went, okay, let's take Muay Thai techniques and create our own sport. And just like that, kickboxing was born. But Muay Thai was not done proving a point. Fast forward to the 1988 and we get one of the most legendary cross-style fights ever. Changpwek Kiatsongret versus Rick Rufus. Now, Rick was an undefeated American kickboxing champ, full of that classic Western confidence. He had speed, knockout power, and a solid I can't lose attitude. What he didn't have? Leg conditioning. The first few rounds, Rick was doing his thing, bouncing around, landing crisp punches, and looking like he was about to give Muay Thai another L. But then, bam! Low kicks, over and over. By the 4th round, his legs looked like they had been hit by a truck, and by the 5th, he could not even stand. Knockout via leg destruction. That fight alone convinced the Western world that ignoring low kicks was a terrible life decision. Then came K1 kickboxing in Japan, the ultimate international proving ground. Muay Thai fighters were invited in, and instead of politely participating, they wrecked shop. Bakao Banchamek became a superstar in the 2000s, turning Japanese and Dutch kickboxers into highlight reel victims. The dude did not just win, he put opponents through pure suffering. His style, a mix of brutal low kicks, insane cardio, and the ability to eat punches like they were compliments. And then Muay Thai crashed into MMA. See, back in the early UFC days, fighters mostly relied on wrestling and boxing. But then a bunch of Muay Thai trained monsters showed up and changed the game. Anderson Silva used his clenching, elbows and kicks to toy with people like a cat with a mouse. Jose Aldo, he had leg kicks so brutal that his opponents basically left fights with a limp and a lifetime of regret. Valentina Shevchenko, she made Muay Thai look effortless, throwing spinning kicks and elbows like she was playing Street Fighter in real life. Speaking of Street Fighter, yes, Muay Thai was everywhere in pop culture. If you ever played as Sagat, the one-eyed Muay Thai boss with an obsession for tiger knees, congratulations, you've indirectly fought with Muay Thai. Tekken's Bruce Irvin, same thing. And then we got Tony Jaa, the guy who single-handedly made Muay Thai famous in the 2000s with Ong Bak in 2003 and The Protector in 2005. His fight scenes were not just good, they were absolute chaos. No wires, no CGI, just Muay Thai insanity. If Jackie Chan was all about creative stunts, Tony Jaa was all about creative violence. But let's talk women in Muay Thai, because for centuries they were banned from fighting in major stadiums. It wasn't until the 1990s that female fighters finally started getting their due respect. And now we've got Stamp Vertex, a Muay Thai world champion who also dominates in MMA, and Anissa Meksen, a fighter so good that she's considered one of the best strikers, male or female, on the planet. Muay Thai had officially taken over the world. It went from underground brawls to global dominance, from bare-knuckle fights in Thailand to main events in Madison Square Garden. And the craziest part, it's still evolving. So here we are, the future of Muay Thai, and let me tell you, it's looking just as wild as its past. For decades, Muay Thai fans have been screaming, why isn't this in the Olympics? Well, guess what? In 2024, it's finally getting a shot as a demonstrative sport in the Paris Olympics. Now don't get too excited, this doesn't mean it's an official Olympic sport yet, but it's the biggest step forward that Muay Thai has ever taken toward finally getting that gold medal status. The real question is, will Olympic Muay Thai be the real deal? Because the International Federation of Muay Thai Associations, IFMA, has been pushing for a safer, more standardized version, which means shin guards, elbow pads, and a whole lot of rule changes. But let's be honest, if you take away the rawness of Muay Thai, does it still feel like Muay Thai? That's a debate for another day. Meanwhile, Muay Thai has become an international cash cow. Thousands of fighters, fitness enthusiasts, and random people who just want to kick stuff are flying to Thailand's top gyms. Places like Tiger Muay Thai, Vertex, and PK Sinchai to train with the best of the best. What started as a local martial art is now a multi-million-dollar industry, with foreigners training, fighting, and even moving to Thailand permanently to chase Muay Thai dreams. But here is the catch: not everything is sunshine and championship belts. Underground gambling still has a tight grip on stadium fights. Match-fixing rumors, corrupt judges, yeah, it happens. Even in world-famous arenas like Lumpini Stadium, betting money can actually influence outcomes. It's a battle between Muay Thai's pure spirit and the business side of the sport, and that battle is far from over. So, what's next? One Championship's 4-ounce glove Muay Thai format is changing the game. Fighters like Rotang Jit Moangnon are turning traditional Muay Thai into an all-out war, blending elbows, spinning back fists, and an insane level of aggression. Meanwhile, MMA fighters are integrating Muay Thai like never before, meaning Muay Thai might not just evolve within its own sport, but influence combat sports as a whole. One thing's for sure, Muay Thai is not going anywhere. It survived wars, colonization, rule changes, and centuries of evolution, and it's still one of the most respected and feared fighting styles on the planet. Whether it's in an MMA cage, an Olympic arena, or a back alley fight in Bangkok, Muay Thai will always be the art of 8 limbs and the art of survival.